So juicy, yeah? Very cool.
Yeah, I still get excited watching it, and I've seen it a lot. But yeah, so next we have a couple of spots and a couple of behind the scenes, so everyone can kind of see what the work that's behind, like all the commercials and spots that we do. This next one is Kia Hero's Journey. It was a Super Bowl spot a couple years ago, and it just has a lot of great visual effects that you may see and may not know that's there. So we'll look at the spot, and then we'll see the behind the scenes afterwards.
Hey, Melissa, the whales need your help.
I love whales! Go, Melissa! Let's protect those whales!
Hey, Melissa, now the trees need you. The ice caps are in trouble. Hey, Melissa, now the rhinos need saving.
Rhinos!
It's hard to be an eco-warrior, but it's easy to drive like one. Introducing the most fuel-efficient crossover, the Kia Niro.
Oh, come on!
Yes, that was one of the most popular Super Bowl spots, I think, a few years ago. So we were really excited for that. And maybe some of you have seen the spot, like, yeah, well, the Rhino definitely did not, pick up Melissa McCarthy and toss her around. But I think there are a lot of other visual effects that you may not have seen. So this behind the scenes will give you a kind of better look at the picture. Yeah, so that was great. And then another piece of work that we've been doing a lot are game cinematics. We partnered up with EA to do some trailers and teasers for Apex Legends, and we were really excited about that. So we're going to see a small trailer for the season 1 when we first did that. Now I think we're on season 6 or 7 with them, and so it's really exciting to kind of see that we did it from beginning to end with our in-house directors.
Liberation from the IMC brought chaos to the Outlands. And the revival of an old blood sport. Some legends fight for fortune, others answers. But we shall all be forged in the glorious realms.
Mirage, quiet.
I see an enemy.
This is what legends are made of. This is what legends are made of.
So that was a 1-minute teaser of the trailer, and you'll see how much work was put into that in the next video.
This is what legends are made of.
Electronic Arts and Respawn Studio presented Mil Plus with an exciting proposition. Create a character-driven, action-packed trailer and cinematic opening for their first ever Battle Royale-style game, Apex. Apex is an extension of the award-winning Titanfall franchise. Mil Plus directors Leisha Tan and David Lawson developed a unique, stylized look for each film through moving concept art. The Mil Plus team shot all the action and dialogue from the script in a motion capture environment.
All be forged in the glorious realms.
Mirage, quiet. Path, are we clear?
With the mocap complete, Mil CG, VFX artists, and compositors went to work to create the visually rich world. Mil colorist Matt Osborne gave every environment a signature look using the unique color script developed by the directors. The ambitious motion comic was created in collaboration with Titmouse. The Mil's creative technology team also got involved by building a complex texturing process to give each asset a hand-painted feel. all the pieces were beautifully brought together to boldly announce to the world that Apex has arrived.
Game over. Thanks for playing.
So those were two of some spots that we want to share with everyone, and now love to kind of dive more into a Q&A. We have a VFX artist, Katarina, here with us, and then Camille. So I'd love to hear from Katarina first about what you do a little bit, and then we'll get into the Q&A with Lynn after.
Hi, everybody. I don't know if you can see me. I think you can.
We can switch it.
Okay, up to you.
Yeah,
Hi. I am a compositor, which is a 2D artist. And that goes under the umbrella of visual effects artist. And I can get into more depth about that later as well.
Wonderful. We're so happy to have you here with us, Katarina. Can you tell us a little bit about how long you've been working with the mill, and also what's it like to be an artist, a 2D artist?
Yes, it's wonderful. I love it. I have been with the mill for 2 years as a staff employee, but I've been working with them before that as a freelancer for 7 or so years, maybe closer to 10. But yes, we've always kind of had a really great working relationship, and I love all the artists and producers that we work with. It's very great. It's really collaborative, and it's awesome to visually problem solve, especially if you're an artist and you kind of thrive off of flowing in an artistic way every day. So I find it very rewarding. It is a lot of hours sometimes, though.
That's wonderful. Have you always been an artist even as a young child?
Yes, I would say so. I've always loved drawing and painting and music and film, and so I've always been exploring that. I knew I was going to take a creative path. I didn't know specifically what that was going to be. Even in college, I didn't know. So, but I knew it was going to be creative. So,
can you tell us a little bit about your education background? Where did you go to college?
Okay, so I started out right when I finished high school. I started out going to a junior college, and junior college in Tarrant County, Texas. And then I went to a state school, University of North Texas. That was for about 2 years. And those really gave me confidence to go after what I really wanted, which was to go to art school. And then, so I got the confidence. I applied to Otis College of Art and Design here in Marina Del Rey, and I got in. I got a little scholarship, which was great. So I packed up and moved to Los Angeles and did a foundation year there. It was wonderful. And now I didn't plan on leaving Otis, but my sister was at Boston College and was having a bit of a time. So I was like, oh, well, maybe I'll see what's out there. And I decided to apply to the Rhode Island School of Design, and they gave me an even bigger scholarship. So I said, okay, universe, I will go. And so then I went to the Rhode Island School of Design, also known as RISD, and that is in Providence, Rhode Island, right next to, pretty much sharing a campus almost with Brown University. And yeah, that was wonderful. I really enjoyed my education. And then, but after that, I learned a lot of very practical things there. I learned, for example, I studied interior architecture, and that's a very broad term, right? So I got the opportunity to, in that department, take a film and audio course. I took jewelry and metalsmithing. Along with drafting and more architectural type studies. And I did some other really cool, like, side painting studio here and there. I was able to kind of fold into my curriculum as well. So it was a very liberal and very open education. Now, having said that, I didn't quite have the confidence to go in and full on apply to an architecture firm, which I looking back now, I could have done it. But having said that, I felt like I knew how to hand draft and hand build like a house, but I didn't know how to do it digitally. I wasn't familiar with AutoCAD and all of these industry standard softwares. So I decided to get my master's degree in architecture at UCLA. And that was also a very wonderful education. Very hard, though. Architecture is a very hard field, just so you know. Yes, so then I went and did 3 years at UCLA and got my master's degree in architecture. So it's kind of a parallel to visual effects, because in architecture, you have to design something and then draw it, build it in 3D space so you can potentially win a client, and then also make it beautiful, add people, add sky, you know, to your building and to your design. And it's kind of a parallel to what we do in visual effects sometimes. So yeah.
Awesome. We actually just highlighted architectural careers last week or 2 weeks ago.
Cool.
So that was just hearing everything that you're saying right now definitely aligns with what they were saying about how challenging it could be, but also really detailed oriented and rewarding in a sense.
Very rewarding. Yes. It is a different time as well, because when I graduated, it was 2008 and we were in a recession. No one was building. So that was the opportunity. That was when I took the opportunity to jump to visual effects. I had some friends that I had made in the digital media arts program at RISD, and they were like, "Come on over, you'll do great." And sure enough, it was a fairly smooth transition for me.
That's awesome. What do you love about your job, and what are some of the challenges that you face?
I love the visual problem solving. I will say I tend to prefer commercials more than feature films. Feature films are very cool, no doubt, but you tend to work on certain spots a little bit longer, whereas commercials, it's kind of a really interesting medium where every commercial is different. And your clients are usually willing to take risks and trust the mill or trust directors and house directors sometimes with a concept they don't really even know what they want yet. So it's always kind of cool to do that and work collaboratively with our clients. Yeah. Did I miss the second question? Sorry.
Yeah, no, you did good. You did really, really good. I was asking, like, what are some of the challenges?
Challenges, yes. Well, sometimes we have very fast turnarounds. So it's, and you know, it's the nature of things today as well, because it's also digital, and now but it's great because it's digital because we're working from home. But that, you know, we have global clients. So sometimes we have to rearrange our schedules to accommodate our clients that are on the other side of the world.
Wow.
But you know, we're flexible. Being an artist, and when you're in a creative field, being an artist and a producer, and within our industry, we tend to be flexible because it's tough, but we love it. So yeah, we go with the flow.
Do you have any advice for our teens or for high school students or college students out there that may be interested in, you know, following your path and becoming a 2D compositor or an artist?
Yes, do it. I think it's wonderful because you can also self-train to some degree. There's a lot of tutorials out there. You can look up the Foundry's website, and maybe we'll put together some links for everybody. And so you can see some tutorials to get an idea of what compositing is versus 3D versus FX. It's like a whole range of, you know, I'm one little planet in the solar system of visual effects in post-production. And so, yes, you can start to train yourself, which is very cool. And a lot of these tutorials do have some footage that that is free for you to do tutorials and stuff. And also know that even if you did go to a visual effects school or another school, it's not totally necessary to get a degree in it. You can self-train, and I took a couple classes at Noman, and then I just jumped in. And some of our some of the things that we do is on the job training as well, and we have kind of programs that, you know, a running program, for example, an internship program as well. And you really, really, really learn when you are on a job. So don't put so much emphasis, which is what I did on myself with architecture, like, oh, I don't know yet. You know, I need to keep going and furthering my education before I jump in. And I think that you really, in visual effects, you really learn once you're in. So yeah, trust yourself, have confidence. If you know a little bit of the language and it's interesting to you, just start playing with it, playing with the tools if you can.
Awesome, thank you for that. What are some of the programs or software that you use every day for work?
I use a software called Nuke. It's by the Foundry, and it's a industry standard compositing software that I can integrate CG objects as well as 2D stuff. So if it's more of a two-dimensional job, you can kind of think of it as moving collage in a way, animating collage. It's a moving picture with, you know, frame range, 24 frames per second is usually our frame range. So yes, that's how I would describe it. Now with the CG side, it's integration, more integration. I worked on Iron Man 3, I believe it was, and and so I had Iron Man as a model, and it looked wonderful and fantastic. And then you put it on the background, and you're like, wait a minute, it looks kind of fake. So it's my job to make it look real and like it's there, and it's, you know, it's not CG. So that's also a very fun part of the job. So those are kind of like two major veins: the CG integration and then the 2D moving collage, if you will.
Yeah, I think whenever people say movie magic, I really say it's actually just compositors. Like they are the magicians. They are the magicians.
We're the icing on the cake, but it takes a lot to get to to create the cake, right? And then that's a lot of the CG team, which has its own several departments. So it takes a lot to contribute to make one commercial. A lot of people.
Very cool. So I hope that answers everybody's question out there. I have one question here from Dr. Donna Lewis. Dr. Donna asks, how do you envision the creative arts industry pivoting as a result of COVID? So, I mean, this could be for Anne or for anybody that can answer that.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question, Dr. Lewis. I think the whole world had to shift a little bit, right, with COVID, and we saw back in March for us. I think even if you asked us in January, could visual effects be something that can be done from home? Can it be an industry where we worked from home? I think a lot of people would have been very skeptical in saying yes, but as you know, the need rose up, we all did it, right? We all transitioned over home. Like Kat is compositing from her home, you know, Camille is associate producing from her home, and I'm in my home, and we're all working together very collaboratively. And so I think as that has changed and shifted, I think for us it really opens up who, like our talent pool as well, because before we had to look like, oh, who's in LA, who can come to our office, who wants to drive through the traffic to get to our office, and now like none of that is a part of anything that we're thinking about when we're thinking about adding talent to our team. So I think it opens us up a little bit more in that way. I think when it is safe to do so and to return back into the studios, I think it's going to be a hybrid of people working from home and working in the studio. So I think that is going to shift not only for our industry, but other industries as well. So yeah, it's pretty interesting to see how the tides have changed a bit, and we're kind of like riding through it to see how we can adapt quickly and to make sure our clients are still happy with the work that we're producing. But anything else, Camille and Kat, to add, please?
Thank you. I hope that answers your question, Dr. Donna. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to ask Katerina one last question, and then we'll turn it over to Camille. So Katerina, my question for you is, if you could turn back time to your teenage self, what is something you would tell yourself? What is some advice you would give yourself?
Okay. Confidence. Just, it's a journey to gain confidence, I suppose. But now looking back at where I was, I had it, or I had what I needed. And I wish I could tell myself that. I definitely loved my education, and my education has gotten me where I am, it's helped me to get to where I am, but I do regret the level of debt that I'm in. I mean, my parents didn't go to college, so I you know, they didn't quite know how to direct me when it was came time to go to college, and here I was like, oh, I want to go to the best art school in the country. So I just signed away everything and just was, you know, I'll deal with it later. And so thankfully I am able to actually, you know, pay my loans right now. But it's daunting. I'm not gonna lie.
Thank you, Katerina. I have one question here from Elias. He asked, how many years of experience have you had? I think you mentioned 10 or?
Yes, I think I'm maybe more like 11 or so years of comping experience now.
Okay. Okay, and then I'm not sure how to ask this question, but he asked who personally would you recommend this job to? So, Elias.
Personally.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've offered to help train my sister because she's very much into film, and she really just jumped in. Now she's kind of going a colorist route / director route. So she's trying to learn a little bit of everything right now. And then just so she can understand fully what it takes to make a feature film with visual effects. So she's kind of self-educating right now and learning on the job. She's working for a company called Deluxe in Burbank. And yeah, so I kind of got her interested in it as well. And I don't know, I think kids these days are so technically savvy, probably way more than I was, and maybe even more than I am now. But I would recommend it if you enjoy gaming, if you enjoy visuals, you know, creativity and a digital platform. Like, definitely, just take a dive into the world of post and visual effects and see what intrigues you more. Because there's many departments to go into. So.
That's awesome. I'm going to ask one last question from Rania. She asked here, what would you recommend when editing videos for YouTube or others? A lot of editing or a little? Do you do any of that?
I wish my sister was here.
Oh,
my younger sister, because she more or less does that. My other sister is a professional editor, and she uses Avid. But this is an industry standard tool. I think if she weren't going to use that or use something a little less, a smaller package would be maybe like Premiere. I think, you know, if you have an iMac, there's always iMovie, I think still, if you have an older machine. There's many things you can do, but I think Premiere might be a good place to start.
Okay.
Yeah. And I would like to just offer, I think it's up to your eye, right? Like, I think finding your own voice and finding like what you like and what you want to present, I think is really key, Rania.
Yeah.
Right? I think
The other thing is like a lot of times concepts cross over, right? So if you learn one tool, chances are you will be able to teach yourself another tool. So if you learn one editing package, you could probably figure out how to use the other editing package. Same with compositing and CG, and we're always changing tools. You know, it's a seasonal type of thing, and sometimes, you know, when Autodesk bought Maya, things changed a little bit then too. So you've kind of always got to be willing to relearn or update your skills.
Okay, that's wonderful advice. Thank you so much, Katerina. I would like to see if we can turn this over to our next guest speaker. Sorry, I had said I would do this. We have Camille. Camille here is a producer. Oops, sorry. Camille Burkett. Camille Burkett here is an associate producer at The Mill. Welcome, Camille.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I'm super stoked to be here. Hi, everyone. I hope you're doing well. Such a good turnout.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and what's your background? Tell us about what it's like to be an associate producer.
Yeah, so I got into this business as a receptionist, actually. Like my path was completely different. I didn't go to school for this at all. I actually went to school for sociology. I graduated from Stony Brook University with a degree in sociology. And I initially wanted to be a professor. And then by the time I was finished with my undergrad, I was just like kind of burnt out and I wanted to see what I could find. So I took a very corporate job with a utility company, which was great, but it was like not creative at all, very cut and dry. And I kind of just wanted to see what I could find in the entertainment industry. And so I happened to find a job at a studio, and I worked as a receptionist. And through that, I started to slowly get an inkling that I was actually really into what we were doing as far as visual effects and animation and all that. And I just kind of slowly worked my way up. So I've been in the industry for about maybe 5-6 years now, losing track of time. But yeah, so I mean, that same fascination that I had when I first started is kind of like what keeps me coming back for more. I'm at a stage in my career now where it's, I'm still learning a lot. And I think that's one of the great things that I like about it too, is like every project is a little bit different. You're not doing the same thing from one day to the next, from one job to the next. And then you also get to work with lots of different kinds of people, depending on what the project needs. And the Mill has, I think, around, like, we've got over 100 people in the LA office. So you're always working with a different team and you're meeting new folks. And so it's a lot of fun getting to know everyone and learning their work styles and learning about all the different types of project pipelines.
That's awesome.
I want to just add to Camille.
Yeah.
I didn't know you started in reception. So did I. So we both moved up from a beginning position in visual effects. And
yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. Would you say, I mean, being that you worked as the receptionist at the company, would you say that it's good to network with people and have connections, or how did you finally get your footing in the door to become a producer?
Well, I think it's kind of, you never really leave any skills behind that you pick up, right? So being a receptionist, then I also worked in like client services. So working one-on-one with clients kind of teaches you how to interact with people, working with executives. You learn a lot about like etiquette and writing emails, and all of those are things that you take with you as you move up the ladder. And it also just teaches you how to be resourceful, which I think is like a very, very, very important skill to have when it comes to producing. Of course, you have like your team to back you up, but it's always really great to have that resourcefulness skill in your back pocket to fall back on, because it requires, just like Katerina was saying, a lot of creative problem solving. So you have to think on your toes and kind of always be ready to pivot at a moment's notice.
Okay. Roderick Lovo Donnan had a question here. What does an associate producer do exactly?
So associate producers and producers in general, we are basically kind of like the liaison between our clients and our artists. So we do things like balancing the budget of a project, making sure that we're staying on schedule, making sure that the team is properly staffed and that all of our needs are being met. Things of that nature. So we're on a lot of like client calls and we're in with meetings, and we basically try to make sure that both our artist needs and our clients' needs are being met, which one of the things is sometimes challenging about it is those are not necessarily always the same thing. So it's a bit of a balancing act. It's like spinning plates. Yeah.
That's awesome. It kind of keeps you on your toes, I feel like. What's the most rewarding part about your job, and what is the most challenging?
Yeah, I think the most rewarding thing is, I mean, you could see from what we showed you earlier as far as our anthem reel and the Kia spot and everything, it's just seeing all those pieces come together to create something out of that was essentially like nothing. It was just an idea at the very beginning, especially you know, when you're on those early calls with your clients and your creative directors, and you're getting all these ideas together and you're making notes, and you know, you have like just like a rough storyboard, or sometimes they'll just start with something as simple as a color palette and a general idea, and then all the creatives get together and they create something that's wonderful. And then by the end of it, sometimes as long as months down the road, then you see the final finished product and it looks better than you could have even imagined from that first phone call. And that's always a very rewarding feeling. And I think the other thing is just the people. As Kat mentioned, it's a collaborative job. And it's always great to see everybody get together and put all their best work and put their best foot forward and support one another, because it's like everybody pulls their weight in a different way. And we really look out for each other, and that's so important. And it really does create like a deep bond when you go through something and you create something with a group of folks.
Thank you. And are there any challenges for you, or is the job just perfect?
No, well, I think kind of I touched on this a little bit, was just like finding that balance and that sweet spot between making sure that your internal team is satisfied and that you're going above and beyond your clients' expectations as well. And the hours can be long sometimes. Sometimes there's no way around that.
Thank you. What do you do to, to relax, or what do you do to distress?
Oh, I love yoga. I love yoga. I drink tea, go for walks. Just kind of try to tap into those things that are low key and not necessarily high impact. That really makes me feel good. I like to read as well.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Thank you. I have a few questions here from our audience. Brandon asks, is there a higher position in your field?
Sorry, I missed that.
Is there a higher position in your field, or are you at the highest you can get? Is there?
Well, yeah. There's. I'm an associate producer. Then above me, there's producer. Then your senior producer, and there's executive producer. And then like you get into like heads of production and things like that. So there are actually like quite a few different levels to go from here.
Okay, awesome. And then Dr. Donna asked here, what advice do you have for creative students who don't know exactly which path to follow to address their passions?
Yeah, I would say just try a bunch of different things if you can. Especially if it comes to like dabbling in different software, you can sometimes get temporary software licenses to start playing around with things. You can also use, I don't know if you've heard of the website Lynda, spelled Lynda, and it just has a bunch of tutorials on it that can teach you the basics about things from like Photoshop to Adobe Premiere, and that's a really useful tool. And you can actually, I don't know if this is still the case, but I know a couple of years ago, last I looked, you can actually get a free Lynda membership through the library.
Yes, I was about to mention that. You are correct. We do offer free Lynda tutorial classes through our library with your library card.
Yeah, so I highly suggest people taking advantage of that, because it's a really useful tool, and it normally has like a monthly membership, but if you go through the library, it's free.
Awesome. TJ asks, when you say creative as a job, are those different skilled artists? Please expound on the spectrum of creatives employed. I don't know if Anne can answer this, or if you can answer this.
Yeah, I feel like that's like a question for all of us. But yeah, I mean, there are like tons of different types of creatives. You have your creative directors, you have your storyboard artists, you have your designers, you have your animators. There's just, it's a wide.
Compositors, FX, like Houdini, particle simulation, water simulations. Yeah. There's so much character design, character modeling, environments.
It's a whole lot. So I hope that says a little bit, has some info for you, TJ. Roderick asks here, what are some critical hard skills that you think are necessary to prepare to become a producer? Google Analytics, data science?
Honestly, I think so much of it is like learning on the job, and just sort of taking anything useful with you that you can get. Also asking a ton of questions is great. I mean, obviously knowing software and things like Outlook and Microsoft Word, that's always helpful, and that's like good to have a background in. But I think like as long as you have the drive to really engage and plug yourself in, like I think that it's really possible for a lot of people to be able to take on this profession. You just have to really, really want to do it.
I'd also like to add that Camille is super, super organized, a great communicator, communicates well with her team and her producers and her clients, and is super, super organized. And I think that is something that is a hard skill that can be learned, that would really help in this field.
I'd like to also add to that with reception, you really get to become a people person, right? And so when I first got the job at the mill, the one thing in my experience that got me the job, like I had, oh, I went to UCLA and I have this master's degree and blah, blah, blah. And then the boss said, okay, well, what job experience do you have? And I was like, well, I worked retail for years. He was like, you're hired. And I actually, it was after I said Starbucks, he was like, you're hired. Because he knew that I was a people person. I could think on my feet and, you know, yeah. So I think that those experiences go far for you.
That's awesome too. And thank you, Anne. I was going to add to your point about organization. That is actually quite huge, and it's like probably like 90% of the work. Because especially as a producer, you're usually on more than one job at a time. And so you have to take note of like internal notes, external notes from your client, making sure that we're hitting all those notes in a timely manner. And then you also have to be mindful of, you know, if your client asks for something that wasn't initially included in the initial layout for the project, then you might have to switch some things around and change. So keeping track of all that stuff is very important. Good point.
Thank you so much to all of you.
I would love
Do you have
to
anything to add?
say
Yeah, go ahead.
that a grid producer is so important to us artists, and especially being organized. It's just, it's such a help for us to continue our work. So they're a very important role. And yes, organization.
Yeah.
Thank you. Camille, I wanted to ask, do you have any advice for anybody out there that if they're interested in becoming a producer, what are some of the things besides being organized? Like, what are some other things that they should like keep doing?
I would say always, always, always ask questions. You know, I think that this career is about like the team you have around you, and because it's a creative path, everyone has various experiences and knowledge that they're more than happy to share with you, but you just have to like ask for it. And if you cultivate that same resourcefulness that I mentioned earlier, like doing research, figuring things out on your own as much as you can, and then asking for help, I think it puts you in a good place to know what you should be asking for and from whom. It's all about kind of just being curious all the time.
Thank you. And I have one last question. If you could turn back time to yourself, back to let's say 18 or your high school self, what advice would you give yourself?
I think I would have told myself to consider all of my options more thoroughly before deciding to go to college in my case. I enjoyed my college experience, but the path that I'm on now didn't require a degree, and to be honest, student loan debt is like no joke. So I think that it's just generally important to always remain inquisitive and a lifelong learner, but that doesn't necessarily always require a diploma. Like Katarina's story, like she's a very talented artist herself, and she gained a lot of her experience from being either self-taught or through mentorship. Trade schools are also a great option. There's also nothing wrong with going to college if that's still something that you want to do, but I think that it's important that young people know that there are no limitations, really. You really don't have to limit yourself to that. I mean, perhaps if you want to be a doctor or a scientist or things of that nature, but there's a lot of room. There's a lot of room for other things as well. Yeah.
Thank you so much. All right, I'm going to turn this over to Anne real quick. So Anne here has a really cool title. And
No slide needed.
Okay, no slide needed. All right, Anne,
yeah.
You are the head of people and culture at the Mill. So tell us a little bit about that and what you do.
Yeah, it's a pretty fancy title, but really I handle all aspects of recruitment, retention, culture, learning development, school outreach, and diversity and inclusion. So it's a lot underneath that title, but it's really exciting work. So I get to work with people like Kat and Camille to do something like this, right? And also to bring in Camille and Kat, which I both did, right? And help build teams, which is really exciting. For me, I care a lot about people and teams, and making sure that everyone has the right, tools in order to move forward to create beautiful work.
Thank you. Somebody asked, is that similar to HR, human resources?
Yeah, I think a lot of different companies, like it can be a part of HR. And here at the Mill, it's kind of like I work in tandem with HR, and I also work in tandem with all the heads of departments as well. I jokingly say that HR does all the paperwork and I do the people work, but that's just a joke that I say. So, but yeah, it is a lot of places part of HR. You'll see a lot of, I think a lot of tech companies now will have a lot of talent managers or people managers that they're calling it, right. I think to also rebrand HR a little bit, because I think HR sounds scary. So it is a part of that though.
Thank you. So how did you get into this job position?
Yeah. You know, I worked in nonprofits before, and I was looking for a job, and my friend called me and said, hey, you know, we have an opening at my visual effects studio. They need someone to help with them with scheduling. And I was like, scheduling what? I have no idea. And they said, artists. And I said, that sounds weird. Like, do I just get people lunches? Like, what's happening? But I joined the company, and I helped put people on teams. And, you know, like if a team needed 2 compositors, I'll be like, oh, I know Kat's available, so I'll put her on this. Or if someone like Camille's like, hey, I need like an animator for 2 weeks, I'll find someone and put it on her team. So I did that for a little bit, and I moved into artist management. So I helped manage the artists and making sure that they were all on projects and they were happy what they're doing. If someone really liked car commercials, I made sure that they were on all the car commercials I can put them on. If they didn't like working with animals so much, then I'd be like, okay, well, you know, we'll make sure to just noting people's preferences and everything. And then from there, I worked a lot with recruiting and was a recruiter, and then evolved into this role, which still has a lot of the recruiting and kind of artist management. So it's just evolved a lot. I care a lot about culture and having fun and making sure people have fun too, because we work really, really, really hard. And like Kat and Camille both said, like sometimes they're long hours. And so if you like the person sitting next to you and you like the environment that you're in and you can create well, then that means a lot to me.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. What is your education background? Was it school necessary to get into this job position?
You know, I don't think so. I mean, I really enjoyed my time in school because I think it made me have a little bit more discipline of like going to classes and everything. I went back and got my master's through a fellowship for master's in public administration. It was through a fellowship though, so someone paid me to go to school. So I felt like that's the only way I was gonna go back to school, is if someone paid for it. And it really helped me kind of narrow in my focus of what I liked and what I enjoyed doing. And that was working with people. But before that, I had a BA in communication.
That's awesome. For anyone that is interested in going to a similar job position like you, what are some skills that would be needed?
Yeah, I think like I really enjoy talking to people every day. Like I think if someone asks like, what do I do every day? I'm like, I just talk to people. I move information around. I talk to people, and so I think a lot of it, the interpersonal skills, the communication. I think follow up is a really big key. A lot of times I think we consume so much, and every day like so much is happening, but to follow up on either any requests or anything that's happening and making sure that, you know, you kind of keep to your word, that all those are like tangible skill sets that will help in a career like this. I do a lot of interviews and everything, so a lot of it is helping people navigate through those interviews too, right? Like I think a lot of times people are nervous in interviews and everything, and I always try to tell people, you know, we're not here to like destroy you or like try to do a gotcha moment or anything. You know, we just really want to get to know you and see if it's a good fit for you or for the company, right? And it's not about like, we gave you a trick question, so you can't work here or anything. So I think a lot of it is compassion.
Great. And you know, being that you do this kind of work, what are some of the skills that you are looking for in others when you're hiring them to work at the Mill or for the Mill?
Mm-hmm. You know, I think a lot of it is like there's definitely the tangibles, right? If you want to be an artist, it's like how good's your eye, how good's your composition, how good's your understanding of the software and everything. But some of it is, grit I guess, right? Like, and passion. Like, I think a lot of times because we do work so hard and so long, if you don't like what you're doing, it's not going to be fun. To be honest, you're not going to like enjoy being there at 9 p.m. going, why am I still doing this, like this shot and tweaking this little thing that I don't feel like matters. So I think people who are passionate about art and what they create, it's a really good blend of technical and artistry, right? And some people are more technical, some people are more artists, and I think it's a good blend of both. But I think if people have passion for the work, if they really enjoy it, if they can be collaborative, because you can create something that's really, really beautiful, but the director or someone can be like, that's nice, but it's not what we want though. And so that can be ego blow sometimes, right? You're like, but it's so good, it's so perfect. And it's like, yeah, but we want it blue instead of red. But you're like, but red is perfect, right? I think it's a lot of like understanding that you're helping create someone else's vision at the moment, right? And even though you can't fall in love too much with like the little nuances that you may prefer.
Well, that's really good advice. I'll go ahead and ask you this one. If you are, I guess the question up here is, what type of entry-level job do you think can lead into a role with people and culture?
I think, honestly, I think a receptionist would be a great place to start to get into a company and see if you like the culture or not, and you like the space that you're there. Any HR internships, any recruiting internships, like coordinators on that level, I think could be good. Like office manager type, like managing offices. I think all those roles can gravitate toward a role like this. And to be honest, like I also, there was not this role when I came to the Mill, right? I was kind of like, I'm doing this. This is what I'm doing. This is what I care about. And I created it for myself. So I think that's something to be mindful too of, like what, I think it's, understanding like what you're good at and like what you can bring value, how you can add value to a company. And then I had to pitch it to be like, hey, I'm doing this and I want to do this. And I think it brings value to a lot of different people.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And my question for you is, if you could turn back time, what is something you wish you could tell yourself or your teenage self?
Gosh, that would be such a fun conversation. But I think I would really say, like, really take time to explore like what you're good at and what people would pay you to do, and what you want to do. I think finding like the intersection of those three things is really important to having like a fulfilling career, because you can have like one or two like of those things, but like I think what you're good at that people would pay you to do is really key.
Thank you. I know we're running out of time, and I just want to thank all three of our amazing guest speakers here, Katerina, Camille, and Anne, for being with us today and for sharing everything that they do at The Mill. It's such an amazing company and organization that works with visual effects, and they do a whole lot of things. If there are any questions out there from our audience, I'll take a few, and then we'll make sure that we get those questions asked for you. So Runier asked here, is it common that producers look at their work and say, that looks horrible? If that happens to you, how do you change your mindset for anyone?
Good question.
Well, it's usually, when it comes to like critiquing work, it's usually not just up to one person, because like I said, there's a whole team involved, and you wouldn't want to ideally critique somebody in that way. You want to be a bit more constructive than that. So instead of saying that looks horrible, you would say something like, how about we consider this? Or what if we did that? Or maybe it's looking a little bit too much like this and we want it to look more like that. Because ultimately it's about learning. So we don't want to discourage anybody from learning. And like I said, every job is different from one to the next. You can have artists who are quite skilled and have been in the industry for a very long time. And it's like a whole different, your client comes to you with something that this artist has never done before in their entire career. And software is constantly changing as well. And there are new settings and different things to learn. So it's always kind of like there's always trial and error. And that's why we have revisions and revisions and revisions and meetings. And we go over things over and over again until we get it right.
Thank you. I hope that answers your question, Rania. Roderick asks, what is the job security like for head of people and culture, associate producer, and special effects?
Well, I mean, I think for now, I mean, the mill is thriving right now. I think COVID situation has turned a lot of things on its head at the moment. So I think the idea of job security might be shifting, but I think that that's not just exclusive to our industry. I'd say that that's probably a worldwide thing at the moment. And unfortunately, I can't really give you a better answer than that, but I do think that a lot of the skills that you acquire as a producer or say as somebody in Anne's position can be taken to a lot of different places and industries.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think all these roles exist in other companies like ours and other industries and everything. It's just, yeah, but it's hard to say it's like this is super secure or anything like that, or not secure just because of the climate that we're in. But I mean, the mill's been around for 30 years, and there's other visual effects companies that have been around that long too. So,
thank you. All right. Are there any last questions out there from our audience before we close up our program? I did see a question earlier. I think I saw from TJ. TJ asked, who comes up with ideas to execute on? I don't know. It feels like with you, Anne, since you were explaining how you're always looking for people to put in different places. But how does the project come in, and then who decides who gets to work on it?
Yeah, I mean, I think we partner with the multiple, it comes in multiple ways, whether through an agency or direct to brand. I think Camille can actually answer that best.
Thank you. Yeah, so sometimes we have like an ad agency that is representing a brand that comes to us. Other times it'll be that brand directly, like, for example, you know, it could be like Apex, or, you know, they usually come to us with some sort of an outline of what they want already, and, you know, some bullet points and some things chosen. And then internally we have our creative director who kind of really spearheads the plan, but then it's all kind of a collaborative effort. If other people on the team, whether designers or animators, have some suggestions and idea, the creative director usually takes those into account as well. And when we first, you know, have our initial meetings, we usually throw out a few different options for the client to choose from. And then from there, we narrow it down, maybe to a couple more, and then we narrow it down again until we get like the finalized idea that everybody agrees on. And then from there, we take it through the execution.
I hope that answers your question, TJ. All right. Oh, somebody asked, did the mill ever have a period in which there were mass layoffs occurring, especially during the housing crisis from 2008? And what type of occupation was hit the hardest?
Yeah, I mean, that's a real question, right? And I think we have been hit by layoffs due to a number of reasons, not just the housing crisis in 2008. So I think it's an ongoing thing. At the Mill LA, we have over 180 staff artists, and in some other studios that also do post-production, they have more freelance and they have less staff, right? So for them, when they have bigger projects, they just hire a bunch of people on for the time being. For us, we like having staff because it helps with the creative and helps with communication, because the projects are shorter, so it helps when people know who they're working with and everything. But we're not immune to, you know, the effects of the economy or anything like that. And so we always have to kind of constantly reevaluate like the size of our company, if we're set up for success and everything like that. So, you know, in that sense, we're just like any other company.
I will say though that in 2008 and 2009, when I started at the mill, that no one was building architecture. So architecture suffered quite a bit, and there's quite a few architects that are in visual effects now from it. But when I started working at the mill, we were super busy during the recession. So yeah. Pretty cool. I think production definitely got a bigger hit than we did because we're post-production and we can work digitally. So that's why we're working and expanding more into games and different like full CG spots as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Katerina. I hope that answers your question, TJ. Oh, with Roderick, I mean. And then I'm going to take one last question here from TJ. TJ asked, what's the smallest budget that you would consider? Would a student film be able to be a client? And this could be for anybody. I don't know.
You know, like we don't, you know, I wouldn't say like no, right? But at the same time, I think it's within our capacity. Like what capacity do we have to take on something like that? And I mean, there's been times when we do work for some nonprofits or and other groups that we don't have a budget for necessarily, and that is kind of just built into like how we operate and everything. So, you know, it's hard to say. Like, I don't ever want to be like, no, that's not something we would consider. But at the same time, like, depending on the availability of people and everything, like sometimes it might be an artist or someone doing that on their spare time instead, right?
Yeah.
If they're passionate for helping out. But
Thank you, Anne. All right. Well, everybody, I want to just turn it over to Jessica if there's any last things that we need to mention. I would also like to just thank Anne, Katerina, and Camille for being here with us today and for sharing their passion for their work. And I hope that it inspires all of you out there that are interested in searching for careers in the creative productions or even visual effects, or even becoming an architect like Katerina. So yeah, there's so much cool information that we learned today. And again, you can visit them at themill.com, and they're also on Instagram under Mill Channel, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, and we have the Mill LA too. That's more LA specific work.
Mill
But, yeah,
LA. So we'll link that in the chat box. But and there are 2 surveys, so definitely please do help us fill that out. And if you have any questions